Welcome to the Ghost Stories of the Battles channel, where ancient echoes of war mingle with the shadows of lost souls. Tonight, we traverse back in time to Pearl Harbor, an iconic landmark in American history, yet shrouded in tales of sorrow and spectral encounters. Did you know that beneath the tranquil waters of Pearl Harbor lies the wreckage of the USS Arizona, entombing the spirits of over 1,000 sailors who perished in an unthinkable moment? What secrets does the sunken ship harbor? Can the ghosts of these brave men still be felt, walking the decks of their former home? The significance of Pearl Harbor is undeniable. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese launched a surprise attack, catalyzing America's entry into World War II. This tragic moment not only marked a turning point in history, but also left behind an indelible mark of battleground, where lives were cut short and warriors became ghosts. Imagine standing on the shores of Pearl Harbor, the scent of salt and history in the air. The waves lap gently against the memorial, a stark contrast to the chaos of that fateful day. The sun dips below the horizon, casting eerie shadows and giving rise to unexplainable feelings. Whispers float through the breeze, hinting at stories waiting to be told. Join us as we delve into the haunted waters of Pearl Harbor, where the past and present intertwine, and the voices of forgotten heroes seek to share their stories with those willing to listen. Story 1. Whispers from the deep. Sarah had always felt a deep connection to the ocean. Growing up in a Navy family, she had spent countless days enveloped in salty air, as surrounded by tales of valor and sacrifice. Each story told at the dinner table only fueled her passion for history, especially the untold stories of those who served. When she finally arrived at Pearl Harbor, a place steeped in both beauty and tragedy, her heart raced with anticipation. The sun hung low in the sky as Sarah stepped onto the Arizona Memorial, where the serene waves lapped against the concrete structure. She paused, gazing down into the clear water that concealed the wreckage of the USS Arizona, a sunken guardian of lost souls. An inexplicable energy pulsed beneath the surface, calling to her. She leaned over the edge, marveling at how something so tragic could also be a place of reverence. As the wind whispered through her hair, she felt an embrace of promise from the past, longing to be remembered. The sun's warm glow illuminated the memorial while shadows began to stretch like fingers over her heart, urging her to listen closely. The atmosphere shifted as the day's light faded. Dusk draped the harbor in a cloak of mystery, and Sarah felt a deep pull toward the water. It was then that the whispers began, soft and elusive, like the distant music of a haunting melody. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she strained to hear, caught in a moment between worlds. The whispers seemed to beckon her to uncover the stories that lay buried in the depths of time, secrets that demanded to be revealed. As twilight deepened, little did she know that this encounter would mark the beginning of a journey, a connection to a soldier who yearned for closure long after the battle had ceased. As the sun dipped lower, the sky turned a brilliant hue of orange and purple, reflecting the hidden sorrows below the hull of the Arizona. Sarah settled on a bench, her thoughts churning. She had come seeking the history of the ship, but now she felt like an intruder in a sacred space. The whispers intensified, fluttering around her like lost leaves caught in a breeze, drawing her in with each passing moment. Can you hear them? A voice barely above a whisper broke into her thoughts, jolting her back to reality. She startled, turning to see an elderly man standing beside her. His weathered skin mirrored the ocean's tumult, and his eyes shone with a depth that suggested he had borne witness to many stories long forgotten. Who? She breathed, captivated. The sailors, he whispered, eyes glinting as he gazed at the memorial. They have not forgotten, and neither should we. Intrigued, Sarah leaned closer. What do they want us to remember? He merely smiled tragically, turning his gaze back to the water. Listen to them. They are waiting for their stories to be told. Suddenly, the air grew cooler, and a fine mist began to envelop the memorial. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but she ignored it, focusing instead on the whispers that seemed to gather strength in the swirling fog. Each word echoed across the waters, weaving tales of dreams and heartaches from sailors lost in the annals of history. As she leaned over the edge once more, the fog thickened, and Sarah's breath came faster. The whispers shifted to distinct voices, growing clearer with every heartbeat. She shut her eyes, surrendering to the sensations washing over her. The air was charged with energy, a mingling of past lives colliding with her present. "Help us remember," one voice called, sorrowful yet resolute. Overwhelmed by emotion, Sarah felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "I'm here," she whispered, almost instinctively. "I'll listen." The moment she spoke, flashes of memory washed over her, revealing snippets of lives once vibrantly lived aboard the Arizona. She saw sailors laughing, playing cards, and sharing stories of home, their laughter ringing like music through the hallowed halls of the ship. But those images morphed into chaos, sudden screams shattering the serenity as the attack commenced. Explosions erupted in a cacophony of sound, sending fear rippling through her very soul. Amidst the confusion, the faces of the sailors twisted in anguish, and Sarah felt their desperate longing for someone to tell their stories. Through the thickening mist, she could see silhouettes, ghostly figures dressed in tattered uniforms, trapped in a memory they could neither escape nor forget. For a moment, she was no longer an observer, she was entwined in their experience, a silent witness to their final moments. In the swirling shadows, one figure distinct from the rest caught her eye. Tall and broad-shouldered, he stood apart, gazing at her with an intensity that made her heart race. His face was both familiar and foreign, his blue eyes filled with emotion as he whispered, "Help me, please." "Who are you?" Sarah managed to ask, her voice trembling as fear coiled within her chest. "I am Tom," he replied, his voice deep and resonant, filled with pain. "I need you to hear my story to carry it for me." As his words seeped into her consciousness, images flooded her mind. Tom and his crew aboard the USS Arizona, the brothers forged in the fires of friendship and war. He was a young sailor, full of life and dreams. But those very dreams shattered in an instant, swallowed by the onslaught of battle and chaos. "I wanted to tell my family I loved them, to say goodbye," he lamented, his voice thick with regret. "But I never had the chance. All I have is a promise to return." Emotion engulfed Sarah. She could feel the weight of his longing, a burden that transcended time. "You wanted to go home," she said softly. Tom nodded, his eyes shimmering with a deep sadness that cut through her. "I was supposed to return, to hold my mother one last time. I couldn't protect them or myself, and now I cannot find peace. What can I do?" she asked, her heart racing. "How can I help?" "Remember us," he urged, extending a hand as if reaching for something just out of reach. "Tell my family, tell them I'm still here. I never left them." Around them, the whispering crescendo continued, rising and falling like the waves below. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the energy wind around her. Ghostly hands brushed against her skin, gently lifting her spirit. "I promise, Tom. I'll carry your story," she vowed, her voice unwavering. As she spoke, a deep peace washed over her, and the buzzing whispers began to fade, leaving behind an aching hollow yet filled with purpose. Just then, a powerful wave crashed against the memorial, splashing salty mist against her face, cutting through the fog. Sarah regained her bearings as the images began to blur into darkness, yet she was no longer afraid. The spirit of Tom vanished into the night, his final words lingering in the air like the scent of the ocean. "Thank you." Left alone, Sarah inhaled deeply, her heart heavy yet buoyed by a newfound determination. She gazed down into the waters, feeling an indelible connection to the brave souls who had once called this ship home. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the whispers flowed back like a gentle tide, a reminder that they were never truly gone. The following morning dawned clear and bright, washing over Pearl Harbor with a golden light that seemed to illuminate the past. Sarah stood on the memorial again, the weight of Tom's story still fresh in her mind. She felt as if she had stepped from one world into another, an ambassador of history, tasked with sharing what could not be forgotten. Drawing her phone from her pocket, she began to write. With each keystroke, she recounted the tales of the sailors whose laughter had echoed in the recesses of her mind. She wrote of their hopes, their dreams left unfulfilled, and their longing to be remembered. She penned every detail of her encounter with Tom, weaving his story into a tapestry of love and loss. As she reached the end, she whispered a prayer for those lost, a promise to honor their memory through her words. "You will not fade. You will live on in the hearts of those who remember." With determination carved into her heart, Sarah departed Pearl Harbor, but carried its stories within her like a flame, forever igniting her passion to preserve the legacies of those who had sacrificed everything. As she drove away, she cast one last glance at the Arizona Memorial, the sun now not just illuminating, but embracing the memories it held. The whispers of the past were fading, but she knew they would never be truly silenced. More voices would rise from the shadows, waiting to be heard, weaving the intricate fabric of history that would shape the present. As Sarah walked away from the water's edge, the last whispers of the young sailors faded like the receding tide. She felt a profound sense of purpose, a weight leaving her heart as she carried their stories with her. But deep down, she understood that this was only the beginning. The echoes of Pearl Harbor would call to others, reminding them of the sacrifices made. Would there be more spirits longing for stories to be shared, for voices waiting to be heard among the drifting shadows of these haunted waters? The thought filled her with both curiosity and anticipation. As she stepped into her car, the sun now blazing high above the horizon, Sarah took a deep breath. The shadows of history lingered long after the sun had set, and she was ready to listen to the symphony of voices that had been all but lost. Join us next time as we discover another chilling tale from this sacred ground, a tale of love, longing, and the weight of unresolved promises. What more can the spirits of Pearl Harbor reveal to us? Story: Tori the Phantom Sailor. Michael Thompson was a local dock worker, having traded in his dreams of military glory for the simple rhythm of loading and unloading cargo at Pearl Harbor. Though a few years had passed since he left the Navy, the military still coursed through his veins. Each evening, as he clocked in for his night shift, Michael felt an inexplicable connection to the waters that shimmered like liquid night beneath the stars. There was a chill in the air, an energy he couldn't quite place, but it made working the docks at night an eerie experience. The stillness was often punctuated by the gentle creaking of boats and the distant echo of a foghorn, sounds that seemed to carry whispers from the depths of history. As he trailed his fingers along the edge of his workstation, Michael often glanced at the Arizona Memorial, haunted by its beauty and tragedy. The memorial stood like a guardian over the wreckage of the USS Arizona, a sentinel of the sacrifice made on that fateful day in December. On one such night, chills raced down his spine. Not from the cool ocean breeze, but from an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Michael brushed it off, attributing the sensation to fatigue. After all, working under the vibrant stars for hours could play tricks on the mind. Yet as he continued, he noticed that something, or someone, seemed to linger at the water's edge. A towering figure clad in a military uniform, ghostly against the backdrop of the star-speckled sky. Initially, he believed it to be a figment of his imagination, a trick of the light dancing across the water. But as the nights stretched onward, the figure became more substantial, almost tangible in the moonlight, yet still wreathed in shadows. Michael's heart raced with curiosity and dread. Who was this phantom sailor? And what haunted dreams compelled him to return night after night to the very shores of Pearl Harbor? The first time Michael saw the figure, he had quickly dismissed it, assuming fatigue had clouded his vision. Yet the following night, under the pale light of a waxing moon, the outline emerged again, sharper and more defined. Standing at the water's edge, the figure seemed to be gazing out at the horizon, lost to time and tethered to a past that Michael could only fathom through history books. The third night, curiosity overtook fear. Michael decided to approach, each step measured as he crossed the dock. As he neared, the air thickened, enveloping him in a haze that seemed to swirl with whispers. Approaching at an angle, he could finally make out details. The uniform was that of a sailor from the early 1940s, complete with the insignias worn by officers of the USS Arizona. The figure turned slightly, and though its face was obscured by shadow, a chill riveted through Michael's bones. "Can you see me?" came a voice, low and mournful, slicing through the stillness like a knife. The words came as a mere thought rather than an audible sound, resonating in Michael's mind. "Yes," he stammered, caught off guard. Suddenly, the surreality of the moment rushed over him. "Who are you?" "I am James Wright, lieutenant aboard the Arizona." "I have lost something," the spirit replied, his form shimmering as the wind flowed through him like water. Michael felt an odd mixture of fear and compassion. "What have you lost?" he asked cautiously, a part of him unsure if he should even be engaging with this apparition. "A piece of my heart, blood," Wright replied, his voice imbued with sorrow. "An artifact, a memento from my life and service. My dog tags were lost during the attack. They mean everything. I cannot find peace without them." As weeks passed, Michael began to look forward to these nightly encounters with the phantom sailor. Their conversations grew deeper, revealing fragments of Wright's past, his hopes, dreams, and the bittersweet devotion to his fellow sailors. It was during these conversations that Michael learned about the everything had changed the day. He and his comrades had fought against the unthinkable. Through James, Michael came to know his fellow crew members, young boys who had left their families behind, filled with the courage of youth and the determination to protect their country. They laughed, shared tales of camaraderie, and spoke with pride of their beloved ship. But each story carried an undercurrent of loss, an all-consuming grief that had shadowed James since the attack. One cold, stubborn night as waves crashed against the dock, Michael's heart raced when James grew restless. "They're calling to me, begging for my help to find their stories. Everything is lost, forgotten," he lamented, glancing toward the water with desperation. "We live in shadows, but together we can uncover the truth." Driven by empathy, Michael felt compelled to aid the spirit. It wasn't merely about finding those tags. It was about ensuring that the memories of his fallen brothers weren't lost to time. Each night they spent together lit a fire within Michael, kindling a relentless determination to help James find peace. Under the weight of an unshakable bond, Michael began his own investigation. As dawn broke each day, he combed through dusty archives and old newspaper articles at the nearby library, piecing together the stories of the sailors on the Arizona. He devoured tales of valor, uncovering letters, photographs, and enduring testimonies from family members that experienced the loss firsthand. Night after night, he brought tales to James, unfolding the history that had been so cruelly snatched away. "Your brothers will not be forgotten," Michael promised. "They will have their stories told." But a growing tension hung in the air. As the historical pieces fell into place, James became more restless. "There's something more," he whispered, barely a breath. "I must confront the past, not just mine, but theirs. The darkness needs a light." One fateful evening, a sudden storm rolled in. Thick clouds swallowing the moon as winds howled and rain poured down in sheets. Michael stood at the edge of the dock, feeling the oppressive weight of turmoil. As lightning flashed, illuminating the bay, James's figure stood before him, flickering like an old film reel, the resolve in his spectral expression stronger than ever. "We must find the old memorial," James urged, his voice rising as the storm swirled angrily around them. "Once there, I can gather them, my brothers, and together we'll shine our stories into the night." Despite the tempest brewing, Michael's heart surged with resolve. With the storm pounding all around them, he and James pushed onward to the Arizona Memorial. Even amidst the rain and howling wind, Michael felt an undeniable bond with the past, a connection that transcended time. Arriving at the memorial, they gazed at the still, watered surface that shimmered under the eerie glow of the storm-lit sky. "This is it," James whispered, tears in his ghostly eyes. "This is where they lie." As thunder rumbled overhead, Michael closed his eyes, feeling a flood of energy rush through him. He concentrated hard, focusing on all the stories he had learned, calling out the names of the sailors who had fought bravely and perished that fateful morning. At that moment, he sensed a gathering of energies around them. The spirits of lost sailors began to coalesce, appearing in shades of gray and blue each, just as they had been. Young and alive, filled with dreams and purpose. Michael gasped at the sight, feeling the weightlessness of time slip away. He had helped James reach the other side of his grief by uncovering the history of his comrades. He stood amidst a chorus of them now, the whispers of their unfulfilled potential rising, like the waves crashing against the memorial, a haunting reminder of the lives that once were. James turned to Michael, gratitude sparkling like starlight in his ethereal gaze. "Thank you. This is my peace." Then, in a gentle and bewildering moment, the spirits began to fade, their vibrant colors softening and twinkling out like stars lost to dawn. Michael clasped his hands tightly, choking back tears. The last echoes of Never Forgotten danced on the wind as the darkness of night gave way to a soft, golden light of dawn. As the first rays of sunlight spilled across Pearl Harbor, Michael felt a profound weight lift from his shoulders. Standing alone at the memorial, he had been enveloped in the symphony of restless souls finding respite. James Wright had not just sought an artifact. He had led Michael to a revelation far more significant. The phantoms of the fallen became part of his story, a sense of purpose ignited within him that would guide the rest of his life. He vowed to keep their memories alive, sharing their stories through historical tours, creating a blog, and advocating for local youth programs to educate future generations about the sacrifice made by those who served. Michael's heart was heavy yet light, burdened but at peace. He turned to look back at the water, the gentle waves reflecting the golden light of a new day. There would always be echoes of loss in these haunted waters, but now there was closure, a promise fulfilled. "The past can be a heavy weight," he murmured to himself, "but it also binds us to honor, courage, and valor." As the wind rustled through the trees, he could have sworn he felt a gentle presence linger, watching over him, a silent agreement to remember. As Michael walked away from the memorial, the sun now fully risen, reality wrapped around him like a warm blanket. He felt renewed, carrying with him not just memories, but a deeper understanding of the sacrifices made. He had witnessed the exchange of sorrow for peace, and it filled him anew with purpose. But the secrets of Pearl Harbor were far from exhausted, and the echoes of its stories lingered on. What other spirits wandered among the remnants of history, waiting for someone to share their tales? As Michael left the dock, the soft sound of the ocean accompanied him, the whispers of the past intertwining with his hopes for the future. What would this sacred ground reveal next? Join us as we delve into another haunting tale, where courage, love, and loss entwine, uncovering the legacies woven into the fabric of time. Story 3. Echoes of Valor. Alyssa Miller had become a familiar face at Pearl Harbor. A self-proclaimed history enthusiast and paranormal investigator, she frequently wandered the grounds, absorbing the pain and valor embedded within its history. The sight of the USS Arizona Memorial, a solemn tribute that floated above a watery grave, filled her with a profound sense of sorrow. But Alice felt something more, an unsettling energy that wrapped around her like a shroud, particularly near the sunken battleship itself. It was as though the spirits of those brave sailors hovered just beyond the veil, whispering their stories to anyone willing to listen. On this particular evening, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the water, which was only interrupted by the gentle ripples that moved steadily against the memorial's base. With her ghost hunting team in tow, comprised of fellow enthusiasts Jason, Maya, and Daniel, Alice prepared for another investigation. Each previous visit had revealed tantalizing hints of disembodied voices, flickering lights, and unexplained phenomena. But tonight felt different. The air was charged with an electric anticipation, promising to draw them deeper into the past. As the twilight encroached, Alice set up her equipment. The spirit box began to crackle, the device capturing intermittent frequencies of sound that could filter through the thin boundary between worlds. Each voice was a haunting reminder, "Remember us," echoed through the mechanisms, sending chills down Alice's spine. She closed her eyes, channeling her energies to connect with whatever restless soul was trying to reach out. When she opened her eyes, the shadows of war beckoned, and the night promised to unveil the histories hiding beneath the calm surface of the water. The first few moments were silent, save for the sound of their equipment whirring. Alice's heart raced as the ghostly voices became clearer. Just then, the spirit box emitted a static, laden sentence, a ghostly plea that felt urgent and raw. "Remember you," owed softly, swirling through the gathering darkness. It instilled not only chills, but also a sense of duty within Alice. She glanced at her team, who looked equally transfixed. "Did you hear that?" Jason asked, wide-eyed. The others nodded, the atmosphere growing heavier around them. Maya, with her own recorder, began asking questions into the night. "Who are you?" she inquired, her voice unsteady but resolute. The reply came almost immediately, a jumble of voices intertwined with one another, a cacophony of histories colliding and overlapping. They heard names Samuel, Daniel, Richard, voices of sailors lost to time. Each name was accompanied by fragments of their lives, their bravery resonating through the narrative. As they pressed on, the team began to realize the nature of the spirit's urgency. They felt the memories of valor, the weight of sacrifice, gliding toward them like memories trapped in time. Under Alice's leadership, they took turns speaking into their devices, making connections with the past, each moment revealing stories stitched into a quilt of experiences. The energy shifted, revealing not just the sadness of lost lives, but layers of camaraderie and heroism that had defined each sailor's existence. Then they encountered Samuel, the spirit that sent quivers of energy through the team. As tall and ghostly, he loomed at the edge of their gathering, a figure encased in a shimmering essence of navy blue. His face was etched with an expression of longing, eyes wide yet distant, as if he were staring into a past not entirely forgotten. He began to speak, his whispers crackling through the device. "We fought for something we believed in," Samuel explained, his voice trembling. "Not just for our country, but for the ones we loved. We need you to remember our stories." With every sentence, the team felt drawn deeper into his memories. They experienced the chaotic energy of that fateful day, the sound of alarms ringing, ships rocking under the assault, heroic actions, and the smell of gunpowder filling the air. Together, they journeyed through Samuel's essence, as he recalled moments, laughs shared among brothers, the warmth of a letter sent home, and the heart-wrenching goodbye from fancy is and families, never to be fulfilled. Alice felt the tears streaming down her cheeks as Samuel relayed the ultimate sacrifice. He spoke of a brotherhood that extended beyond blood and an unwavering commitment to defend those unable to defend themselves. The spirits wished to share their legacy and have their valor etched into the sands of time unforgotten. Suddenly, the atmosphere grew heavy as a thick fog rolled in from the ocean, a spectral mist that swirled around the group, enveloping them. Shadows flickered at the corners of their vision, and the spirit box crackled with renewed fervor. "Help us remember," the voices implored, intertwining with the actual conditions of the moment. Every hair on Alice's arms stood on end. She felt the rush of urgency resonate within her, weaving her consciousness thread by thread into Samuel's experiences. "Tell us what you need," Alice called out, her voice commanding, yet filled with empathy. The specter of Samuel lingered closer, a palpable presence of truth hovering over the group. "The words must be spoken," he implored, his voice strained. "Honor us with your stories. Speak our names. We wish not to be shadows in the dark." Understanding flooded Alice's mind, and almost instinctively, each member of the team began to recount the stories they had researched, breathing life back into the names of the sailors. Each tale carried weight, a structured farewell, and an acknowledgement of their sacrifices. When it fell silent again, Maya stepped forward, her heart racing. "We can share your stories, but we need to know more. Was there anyone you wished to send a message?" Samuel's eyes glimmered with unshed tears, his form growing fainter. His voice was a whisper as he mentioned a loved one, his sister, Margaret. She must know that I lived for her, even as I fought back. The words seemed to catch in his throat, intertwining with distress. Tell her to remember. I loved her fiercely. Alice absorbed that heavy responsibility into her spirit, feeling the echo of Valor pulsate around her like an unseen heartbeat. We will remember you, Samuel, she promised, her earnest voice cutting through the cold air. We will tell your sister about your bravery and love. We will not let history forget you. With that, the mist around them began to clear, and as dawn broke along the horizon, the first rays of sunlight splashed warm hues against the cool surface of the harbor. Samuel's figure dimmed until he was nothing but a wisp of memory, scattering into the air, leaving behind a sense of peace that shifted the weight from Alice's heart. As their session came to an end, the team gathered in a circle, each member acutely aware of what transpired. Gratitude hung in the air like the scent of salt and sea, as they understood the power of their connection to the past. Alice's heart swelled with an overwhelming sense of purpose. The stories of valor needed to be chronicled, passed on as a living testament of those who bravely fought for their country. Samuel, and all the others, I hear you, and I promise to share your stories. Alice vowed softly, looking both to her team and to the serene waters that enveloped such a tragic legacy. With each step they took back to the memorial, she felt lighter, as if the burden of grief had lifted, replaced now with the collective effort to honor their sacrifice. Alice made a silent prayer for the spirits who lingered nearby, enveloped in their unyielding echo of valor, and for the families left behind, who still awaited closure. Before leaving, the group stood in front of the Arizona Memorial, a solemn tribute amidst the backdrop of history. Alice felt a gentle presence alongside her of gratitude, a whisper that said they would remember her just as she would remember them. The echoes of valor resonated within Alice as she returned home. Every heartbeat echoed the names of those sailors, those brave souls who had fought fiercely, and whose stories had once again come to life through her efforts. As she settled in for the night, her heart filled with resolve, a renewed vow to share their legacies, to ensure the world remembered not only the names but their sacrifices. The haunting call of lost lives would persist long after she laid her head to rest. Those spirits lingered, waiting for someone to pick up the torch and carry their stories forward. But as dawn approached and the memories settled, Alice was left to ponder a question hung in the air. Would these brave spirits rest easy now that their stories had been acknowledged? An unshakable feeling remained. The past was not just a memory, but an integral piece of the present. As she drifted into slumber, the lines between worlds blurred, and with it came the promise to honor every echo and every valorous heart, reverberating still through the annals of history. Would the next story be one of justice, one that needed to rise to the surface? Stay tuned for the next chapter of our journey through the spirits of Pearl Harbor and their call to remember the sacred price paid on that fateful day. Story 43. The Last Call. Luke Garrett, a young journalist with an adventurous spirit and an insatiable curiosity, had arrived at Pearl Harbor under the cover of night. It was his great ambition to uncover the untold tales of the USS Arizona and the ghosts that lingered in the shadows of history. His camera and notes were at the ready, equipped not just with technical gear, but also with an eagerness to capture the unseen, the spectral echoes of a tragic past. As the hazy mist rolled in from the ocean, it swallowed the memorial in a ghostly embrace. The only sounds were the soft lapping of the waves against the pier and the occasional distant call of a seabird, which seemed oddly out of place in the heavy silence. The haunting, empty landscape of the historic site spoke volumes. The emptiness felt almost alive, charged with the whispers of those who had once walked the decks of the fateful ship. The moon cast ghostly shadows, illuminating the memorial with an ethereal glow. And Luke took a deep breath, bracing himself to delve deep into those whispers. But what he didn't expect was the palpable presence that awaited him, an energy that coursed through the ground. like a ripple of electricity, beckoning him deeper into the heart of the complex. Little did he know he was stepping into a web of intrigue intertwined with the souls who had sacrificed so much. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, he moved forward, determined to document whatever he could. Unbeknownst to him, the spirits of soldiers lost had their own story to tell, and they weren't ready to let him leave without imparting their final call. As Luke wandered past the memorial, he felt an uncomfortable shiver crawl down his spine. The air grew heavy, thick with memories and perhaps something more sinister. He had read the stories, tales of restless spirits and lingering echoes of valor. Now, standing at the entrance of an abandoned bunker, he knew he was in the midst of something far greater than journalism. He was about to become part of history. Inscribed on the stone walls were eerie remnants of a bygone era. As he entered, the darkness enveloped him like a shroud. The faint sound of dripping water echoed through the hollow corridors, but as Luke adjusted the lens on his camera, a whisper wove through the air, a soft, plaintive voice. "Help us." His heart raced. Had he really just heard that? He turned around, thinking he might encounter a fellow investigator, but found himself alone. Compelled, he moved deeper into the labyrinth, camera held aloft. Shadows danced on the walls, and every flicker of his flashlight revealed fragments of faded murals depicting moments of bravery, men in uniform, eyes bright with dreams of victory. As he stepped over debris and dust, he felt a push, an invisible urge that drove him forward, leaving no room for doubt. Voices filled the air, more urgent now. Overlapping each other, "Remember us," they pleaded, sounding both desperate and solemn. Luke scribbled notes frantically, though he couldn't quite grasp what the spirits were trying to convey. Suddenly, in a large open room, Lee was jolted by a rush of cold air, and instinctively he swung his flashlight around. The light flickered and caught the reflection of a figure standing at the far end. A tall soldier in a faded military uniform. His face was obscured by the shadows, but Luke could feel the weight of his gaze. "Who are you?" Luke called out, his voice trembling, betraying his facade of bravado. The figure remained still, but Luke knew he had to press on. "What do you want?" We were abandoned." The soldier's voice echoed hollowly, a mournful lament that reverberated off the bunker walls. "They buried our stories." Curiosity morphed into determination. Luke sought to uncover the truth behind the soldier's plea. "Tell me, what happened here?" In a surreal, almost cinematic moment, the room transformed. Shadows flickered, and memories surged forth. Luke found himself standing in the past, the haunting legacy of Pearl Harbor alive around him, a world of chaos, bravery, and sacrifice. A cacophony of voices rang in his ears, the sound of sailors preparing for an onslaught that would change history forever. Through scattered visions, the soldier revealed snippets of history, frantic warnings ignored, critical intelligence overlooked. There were whispers of an imminent attack. The soldier continued, his eyes now filled with a deep sorrow, but they fell upon deaf ears. "We were sent to our deaths, but our stories, our valor, they linger in the twilight." Flashes of the fateful morning treated Luke to heart. Wrenching scenes, men laughing, eating breakfast, oblivious to the horror that was about to unfold. And warmth enveloped him, burning to the core as the soldier recalled names, fellow brothers in arms who had perished without a chance to have their legends told. So many burdens carried alone, he lamented, voice breaking with the weight of grief. Luke's heart ached for the echoes of the past that surged across the cold concrete, a cry for remembrance. He recorded every haunting detail, the spirits urging him onward, revealing truths hidden until now. Together, they traversed through the labyrinth of history, and each corner unveiled more chilling secrets, suspicious orders, dismissive attitudes, corners cut in safety protocols. In another chamber, confronted by a rush of emotions, Luke stumbled upon a haunting tableau, a gathering of ethereal figures, souls entwined in the embrace of loss. Each spirit held a piece of the narrative Luke desperately sought to uncover. The flickering shadows revealed their stories, melding past sacrifices with present despair. Find our truth, Before we fade, the soldier whispered, his expression a mix of anguish and hope. Luke felt the urgency in their plea he couldn't leave without enlightening the world. The strength of their stories surged within him, igniting a fire of purpose he had never known. Little by little, he pieced together the puzzle. This wasn't merely a haunted site. It held the resonance of lives lost under tragic circumstances. Then, as dawn approached, the energy in the room shifted. An overwhelming wave of emotion, both painful and liberating, coursed through him. Luke realized he had reached the essence of its tragedy. In a moment of clarity, the soldier's face came into sharp focus, and Luke understood the weight of his purpose. "Tell the truth," he said. "Don't let our story be buried with us." The soldier's expression reflected deep sorrow yet a flicker of gratitude, as if Luke had finally seen the vastness of their plight. A series of historic battles played out before him, and each soul implored him to share. The specters surrounded him, their whispers rising like a tidal wave, melding into a single voice, a final call for redemption and recognition, a last plea for justice long overdue. By the time day broke over Pearl Harbor, Luke emerged from the bunker, utterly transformed. Holding onto his notes, he felt like a vessel of forgotten histories. The sun painted the sky with strokes of orange and pink, yet the burden of those who lives were forever altered, weighed heavily on his heart. With the echoes of their stories etched deep within him, he knew he had a mission. The tales of those who lived and died at Pearl Harbor demanded to be told, not just for haunting intrigue but for the sacred honor of the sacrifices made. As he departed, the gentle breeze brushed to give him a soft acknowledgement from the lost sailors that this wasn't just a story, but a truth waiting to be unveiled. Luke understood now that he was more than just a journalist. He was a conduit for the voices of the fallen, a voice to ensure they would never be forgotten. "What do you want me to tell?" he whispered to the wind before heading back, the whisper enveloping his senses. In that moment, a single tear trailed down his cheek as he began his quest to reveal not just the ghosts who lingered, but also the dignity of the lives they had once lived. As the sun cut through the fresh morning fog, casting a warm glow over Pearl Harbor, Luke knew he would not rest until he shared the full measure of the truth hidden beneath layers of dust and trauma. The soldier's stories of heart-touch and heroism burned brightly in his mind, both a burden and a gift. He resolved to write an exposé that would claw at the entrenched silence surrounding the attack and its heavy, unfinished legacy. Each revelation would serve as an honor to the lives lost that fateful day away, to shatter the veil of silence surrounding their ultimate sacrifices. In the quiet moments he spent with the spirits, he sensed their camaraderie and unbreakable bond forged in battle, sacrifice, and ultimately, a shared desire to be seen and remembered. He promised them he would illuminate their stories, ensuring their bravery and pain would never be forgotten. As he stepped onto the grounds of the memorial, he felt weightless, yet deeply grounded by the gravity of the stories he now carried within him. The whispers now transformed into a chorus, echoing behind him as he walked forward. The journey ahead would not be easy, but as he stood reflected against the glistening waters, he knew he wasn't alone. The spirits had entrusted him with a promise, a pact forged across time, capable of cutting through shadows, seeking the light of justice. Luke finally understood that while the suns of history may set, the spirits of courage never rest. They remain a part of the fabric of our collective memory, urging us to remember, to honor, and to never forget. As we reflect upon tonight's haunting tales of Pearl Harbor, we are reminded of the delicate weave of history, where duty entwines with deep loss. The echoes of valor resonate through time and space, carrying the whispers of those who have sacrificed everything for their friends, families, and our freedom. The haunting calls from the deck of the USS Arizona, and the weary souls of its sailors linger in the stillness, holding the stories they once cherished but never had the chance to share. Luke's transformation tells us there is a deeper calling behind the camera's lens, a responsibility to bring the past to the forefront of our consciousness. heartened by the stories of courage. Each spirit embodies the quest for remembrance, a mission to ensure that the lessons buried beneath the waves are not lost, but celebrated. The paths of these men, filled with promise and dreams dashed too soon, beckon us forward to shine a light on their sacrifices. The battlefields of memory remain shrouded in mystery, where untold stories yearn for breath, stories that serve as reminders of the bravery it takes to confront the dark aspects of our history. Every whisper of the past urges us to not only remember the fallen, but to seek the truths that remain buried in silence. When we immerse ourselves in these spectral narratives, we find unity with spirits who bravely faced their greatest trials. As we draw our journey to a close, let us honor these tales of sorrow, strength, and spectral guidance. What resonates with you from tonight's encounters? Does the history of Pearl Harbor stir within you a passion to uncover the truth? In closing, remember that the ghosts of our past live among us, not only to haunt but to teach, to remind, and to forge connections across the expanse of time. We hold their stories within our grasp, capable of echoing beautifully through our actions and intentions. These spirits whisper through the winds of time, waiting for compassionate hearts to carry their messages onward. Thank you for joining us on this ghostly voyage through the shadows of one of America's most significant chapters in history. If you found meaning in tonight's resonant tales, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to the Ghost Stories of the Battles channel, where tales of bravery and spirit beckon us forward into unexplored realms, tales still waiting to unfold. Each story holds a piece of our shared history, whispering for remembrance in the ebb and flow of our lives. Together, let us ensure that their legacies never fade into silence, a call echoing through time, seeking to remind us all, remember, honor, and truly listen. As the sun sets over Pearl Harbor, we are reminded of the intertwined histories woven into the very fabric of this sacred ground. Each story we've explored tonight, each whisper, each phantom, each echo paints a vivid portrait of sacrifice and enduring spirit. The ghosts of the USS Arizona and those who fought bravely around her may have departed this world, yet their legacies remain palpable, lingering like the tides that still wash over their resting place. Reflecting on Sarah's connection with Tom, we see how the past can resonate meaningfully in the present. Her emotional journey during that encounter offers a powerful reminder of the need to honor the stories that time cannot erase. Similarly, Michael's experience with James Wright underscores the desire for closure and remembrance that binds us to our collective history. The moments they shared with these spirits, filled with longing and love, challenge us to consider how we remember those who've come before us. Alice's paranormal investigations broaden our understanding of the resilience of memory. The sailors' urgent pleas, requesting acknowledgement of their bravery, serve as a call to action for us, echoing across generations. In turn, Luke's daring delve into hidden truths reveals not only the shadows of the past, but the pressing responsibility we hold to share and preserve these narratives for future generations. Now, as we conclude tonight's haunting exploration, let's take a moment to reflect on what these stories mean to each of us. Have you ever felt a connection to the past, an urge to remember and honor those who have sacrificed? We invite you to share your thoughts or your own experiences with Ghosts of History in the comments below. What resonated with you most? What stories do you think the spirits of Pearl Harbor still wish to tell? As we turn the final page on tonight's ghostly voyage, remember this. Some echoes of the past refuse to remain quiet, lingering on in our memories and hearts, whispering truths that must never be forgotten. They beckon us to listen, to acknowledge, and to share. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the shadows of history. If you enjoyed the tales tonight, if you felt the innate connection to the ghosts of valor and sacrifice, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Ghost Stories of the Battles channel for more haunting histories. Together, we can keep these vital stories alive, allowing the echoes of bravery to resonate through time. Until next time, may your nights be filled with memories, and may the ghosts of our past walk beside you as you navigate the currents of your own story.